Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for March 2nd to order. And this meeting is being conducted via Zoom, given our continuing COVID protocols. And at the same time, it is being recorded, so it will be up on our YouTube video site at some point in time. Here comes Kate. Good. And Kate is in under her magical alias as usual, but that's okay. We know.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Great. So right now we have Randall Kemp representing the Highway Department, Cindy Palmer sitting in from the Planning Board, and Sierra Simmons sitting in from the Housing Authority, and then members of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee, Diana Fetterman, Kate Swistak-Brooks, and Chris Fowles, and Ed Gibson hopefully will be joining us. But I think we'll get started anyway, because I know everybody's got a busy schedule and mid-afternoon meetings are not necessarily ideal for anybody. So we'll try and just cover what we wanted to do. You've all, I believe, gotten the message or two about this one-stop grant. So I think I'm going to jump right into that. I don't see any members of the public hanging out that want to join in. And if the members don't have any objection, I'd rather cover the minutes at the end of the meeting so that we can work on this grant first, and then we can go back to our regular small business agenda, okay? So basically the One Stop for Growth grant is kind of a new animal that the state has created. For whatever reason, they finally got a bit organized, I guess, and logical in my mind to have one portal to be able to apply for 10 different grant programs that the state offers. So instead of doing, you know, all the machinations that I imagine some of you, especially probably Randall with Mass Works, has gone through, this is supposed to make it a bit easier. So I'm going to share my screen just briefly here, if I find the right one. And this was the notification of funding availability that I believe I sent out to everybody. I think Cindy and Sierra, you would have gotten it as well. Of course, if I can make my cursor move, that would be nice. So I won't go through the whole thing. I had highlighted areas that I thought were important, and basically it seems like an opportunity that we shouldn't miss if we can possibly help it. These are the programs that are involved in this new state one-stop program. And I know Mass Works we've dealt with before. We're not a housing choice community, unfortunately. So I don't think there's anyone else on here, although I don't know, Randall, the 43D expedited permitting, is that something you're familiar with?
I am not.
No. So I think the only one, my understanding is the only one we've taken advantage of has been the Mass Works in the past. And I believe that's where we got our money for the East Street Bridge. Is that not right?
Correct.
So that's our big one anyway. There's two new grant categories that they're putting in here now. One is the community planning grant and a rural and small town development fund. And both of those, as well as a third one down at the bottom here called the Underutilized Properties Grant Program. All three of those seem to be, at least title-wise, something that could be of interest to us. So that's what I kind of wanted to put a few heads together today and from the different committees that might be involved and see if we could think about it. Basically, what they have done is put together this sort of a economic development continuum, I guess I would say. And that's what this little graph at the bottom shows, which is this kind of preparing for growth in the first three boxes, and then more specific projects that may be things that are probably closer to already having been really planned out and maybe closer to shovel ready. So my thinking is that we're probably focusing in the first three boxes of this continuum if we find something that's of interest to us. But basically the reason we're trying to get together here is that this is the time for the expressions of interest period, which is basically from now to the end of March, I believe, yep. And then what happens is each town is allowed to pitch 5 different ideas of potential projects in any of the categories. And to fill out this expressions of interest form, and then get feedback from these state committees as to whether, these make any sense. Is it something that the state committee is interested in? If, a particular program doesn't think it's theirs, they would, they forward it on to the other one. I mean, they really kind of work together apparently to give feedback on any of the potential concepts that we would suggest to them, and give some instruction as to how to go about strengthening the idea or the proposal. The proposals themselves are able to be put in the system, I believe, in April and May, and then we would know about it sometime in the fall. So it's, it's an opportunity right now. And I think, to me, the expressions of interest period, if we can get some real feedback from people, I just seemed like that was a great idea to try and take advantage of. So just looking at very, very briefly, technical assistance and implementation grants, not totally clear if we have anything in those areas, but that was a possible one. Planning and zoning, we've already done the update of our master plan. And housing, I know Sierra, I believe that the DLTA program from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Planning Board and housing kind of put in a joint proposal to have a technical assistance person help them with the housing production plan update, because that's on our website and it's 10 years old and needs updating. Now, we'll know soon about those DLTA grants. I'm thinking based on last year, we'll know within the next week, 10 days, about whether those have been awarded or not. So if it comes through, then that's fine. That's maybe one thing that housing and planning have already kind of got under control a little bit. If it doesn't come through, then I think that, that could be a possible one for us to think about, okay, as an idea. I think Ed is joining us in a minute here.
And Chris, while he's joining us, let me just add that, am I on? Can you hear me? Did I mute?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yep, no, go ahead.
That the planning board has been working for a few years now on updating zoning bylaws. Just know that that's
Okay.
in process, okay?
All right, very good. Yeah, okay. So there may be things here that, could be of interest to us. Ed, are you there? Give a shout.
I am.
No? Okay, very good. I didn't see you. I've got my screen in a different mode here. Good. We're just running through briefly on the NOFA, just real quick, and then we'll look at the application. But we have Randall's here from Highway, and Cindy's representing planning, and Sierra's here from the Housing Authority along with us. So we've got a few heads
Cool.
together that might be the departments that would be likely to benefit from.
There's a
from
new
the
person
program
here too. Chris, there's somebody named Catherine Federici that I don't know. Hi.
Hi, this is Kate.
Kate.
Oh, I'm
I'm on my
sorry.
work alias.
Sorry. I heard that. I apologize for interrupting. Hi, Caitlin. I know you.
That's okay.
Sorry about that. Okay.
That's okay. We're all incognito today here. That's fine. So anyway, there are various opportunities maybe for the housing folks here. I don't know anything other than that, but we'll know from the DLTA one pretty soon, I think. Site preparation, this was more of, we were looking for some sort of a, acquiring a site, I guess, and, really trying to figure out what this could possibly be. I know a couple of us had talked at our previous meeting, and Randall, you also brought up the idea of the public safety complex. So I think that's one we'll come back to and take a look at it in a bit more detail. Jumping into some of the other categories, these are ones that are really much more ready to get into the engineering and permitting kinds of things. And I'm not aware myself of anything that we have that could be ready to do that. Infrastructure and site planning documents. So maybe this would be where the idea of a public safety complex might fit in this one. I'm not sure. The building condition study, structural engineering reports, it's not quite as formal, right, Ed? But we have done the outside envelope study of the old town hall current police station. So we
Yep.
have some ideas about that in terms of where the weaknesses are and some rough ideas of costing, but not any more, real super overhaul. It's more pinpointing areas that need some emergency maintenance to avoid further water and other deterioration, is my understanding on that. The building one here is interesting to, funding is available for capital improvements essential to the occupancy of a blighted, abandoned, vacant, or underused property. This, I didn't know if this would be something eventually in the housing category, but it could be something else. So I don't know. And then the last one here was shovel-ready projects for public infrastructure, roads and streets and bridges kinds of things. So that's one, unless Randall's got one hiding in his pocket somewhere besides the East Street Bridge. I'm not aware of it. They definitely are very interested in housing as a priority, but not only limited to that, obviously. And then they do talk about this rural town, small town one, and especially this would apply to us because it would be for populations less than 7,000 people. And this, again, it brought up just as those couple examples, the rehab of an underutilized property, or maybe some sort of funding for a new water line or something in an area that's only served by wells, which would be a good share of our town, I believe. So there's those kinds of things that are available. So without going into great detail on that, let me stop sharing that. And I wanted to just show you what the little application itself looks like. And again, this is just for the expressions of interest part. And I'll just go back up real quick. So the beginning page is very simple. It's just, who's applying, who are we, what category. Not a whole lot of strenuous information required there. The second part is more just about the community background. So I guess this would be anything we would do would be from the town of Southampton, or maybe it could be directly, say, from the highway department in Southampton as the grant applicant. And it's basically 4 or 5 questions just talking about, what are the goals of the applicant? What are we trying to accomplish? What have been some of the obstacles that we've had or challenges? Anything that we've done in the last 5 years that kind of relate to this. And I don't know if we've done, Ed, anything through the Community Compact Best Practices Program. I'm not aware of it if we have.
We did. It was before I got here.
Okay, so it's a long time ago then, probably not relevant to include.
Would this have been,
So that's just sort of a section. Yeah,
would this have been through a community compact grant?
it might have been.
Yes.
I know of 3 projects that were undertaken
Okay.
under community compact, but I'm not sure how they would apply. It was
Okay.
The wage and compensation. There was a town charter study to talk about changing the town charter to
Yeah.
modify the town government. And then I
Okay.
believe there was one for the fire department
Okay.
to analyze if they needed all the equipment they had and some of those things.
Okay.
And
Okay. Well, that's
those were all about 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. That's helpful. We can take a look and see if those make any sense and whether this question really even needs to be answered. It says, if none, we can put NA, so we might even not even worry about it. And then here, which of the strategies have been adopted by the town? We've obviously got an approved master plan. I don't think, so we've done, well, maybe a little bit of this community compact best practices, but maybe not. So we definitely have the master plan. Other than that, I'm not sure if there's anything we could check off there. Nothing else strikes my knowledge on that. And then the last category of these were just housing development related things. And Sierra, I know you're relatively new to the committee here, but I believe and between you and Cindy, we've got the inclusionary zoning bylaw, I believe. We do have the housing production plan. It needs updating, but it was an approved plan, I believe. And then we do have designated local funds for use with CPA funds. So we do have the CPA thing here. And then some of the zoning, I guess, Cindy, we'd have to go back and just double check if any of this zoning, if any of the zoning ones apply. The multifamily development, the duplexes and accessory dwelling units. In particular, I can't remember, but Cindy, if you know off the top of your head, just.
I do know that a lot of that has been addressed. I cannot speak with detail or certain authority about specifics. However, Chris, if that document could be forwarded to me, I know the planning board canceled their meeting for tomorrow night and the next meeting is the 17th, but if we could, I could ask Paul and he could forward it to our consultant if he's available to give us some input on that section, plus the one you went through above that. Go to the one about related to
goals and objectives of the department.
Well, it was commercial. Oh no, you went too far. Go down, go down. It was that one, economic development.
Yes.
I think there might be something related to commercial zoning by right, maybe. And also possibly something with the complete streets piece at the very bottom. Maybe Randall knows about that one, but nonetheless, I'd like to run that by Paul and the other planning board people.
Sure, no problem. I'll send it out as a Word document to everybody after the meeting, so you can have it handy.
Okay, thanks.
We do not have a complete streets prioritization plan, I can tell you.
Okay, Randall knew the answer. Great, thanks.
Good, thanks. So that's just kind of the intro part of the background of who, and then this then is the project, and it's literally 4 questions. Let me not lie here. Basically, it is 4 questions. So who's the name of the project, describing what it is, if it's going to be phased, and if we've already done some of it, what phase or what level of progress has been done. How does it align with the goals that were mentioned up above in terms of the economic development for the town? And how ready are we to begin the implementation and what activities need to be undertaken to get it moving forward? And that is basically literally the sum total of this expression of interest, because the question number 5, you just check off which grant you think you're applying for. And then if you wanted to add a second project. So when you add a second project idea, again, it's those same 4 questions, and then you go on down to the 3rd idea. So it's really not a very onerous application to at least pitch some ideas. And as I've looked myself at my own writing, and Diana, you probably know better than me, but it depends on when they talk about 1,000 characters, whether they're counting spaces as characters or not. But I'm going to say that this probably description is, like a solid paragraph. It's maybe 500 words offhand as a guess, but they're counting characters, not words. So they will limit us. So we'd have to be pretty concise, but it's not a lengthy, paper that we have to write compared to many other kinds of applications. So this is really, not terribly demanding, I guess, is my thinking compared to other applications I've seen. The background part is a little bit, it's double that. That's 2,000 characters. So maybe that's, a few more words, but that's essentially what they're asking us to do. And so I was hoping that we'd have, maybe 2 or 3 ideas. Maybe we don't have 5, but if we might have 2 or 3 possible ideas to pitch to the state and see what's going on. So I don't know if anybody has some thoughts about that. Randall, if you wanted to go ahead further with the public safety complex idea or something else in the general highway department area, feel free. If there's something that's kind of been really on the back burner that, we just have never even had a chance to spend a lot of time thinking about, but would be really good for the town. I don't know. We definitely need your guys' technical input on any of this. I mean, we're willing as the grant committee to help put all the pieces together here and get it going in the right direction, but definitely a lot of the technical stuff I wouldn't presume that we would know how to answer. So any brainstorming ideas off the top of your heads? Anybody, feel free.
I think it would be great to have a housing project because a lot of this is really, or something that would lead towards a housing project, because that's, I mean, it seems like that's a big part of why they're doing this. One stop for growth is for housing.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. I mean, it's not the only one, but definitely is a high priority. Housing is a high priority for them. And I think you may know that we're supposed to be attempting to be achieving a 10% rate, I believe, of affordable housing in our community, and we are so far away from that. I'm not sure that we're even at 1%, but we definitely have not made a lot of progress on that, and that's why, again, the update of the housing production plan might help figure some of that out and move forward. And again, I will say, if the DLTA grant does not come through, then definitely I think we really need to focus with housing and planning to help put something together on this one, for that notion of doing an update of that plan and looking at, various other things that have been talked about over time. I know Jim Sini had presented some things to the planning board, I believe, about a possible senior overlay district and things like that. So all of that, I think, could be incorporated into any kind of a proposal that we might think about. So we don't need to decide anything today. I just really wanted to get some brainstorming and juices flowing here a little bit. We do have, the month to basically put it together. So housing of sorts, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that.
Go ahead.
For a minute. Okay, so I'm looking at where we fall in this, and we were talking yesterday at the housing meeting about this one particular property. It's on, let's see, where is it?
Is it Middle Road one?
Middle Road, yeah, it's Middle Road. It's technically it would be 55 Middle Road if there was a number, which there isn't.
Okay.
It's property that belongs to the town already, so it wouldn't necessarily be an acquisition project.
Great.
But I was just looking at, I do think, it could be under the rehabilitation of underutilized property, but it looks to me like those underutilized property grants, like the building, they're for things where you're really ready to like dig and construct. And it looks to me like this, what is it called? Site preparation.
Yeah,
I think
let me get out of this
timeline that would fit with us, because we need to kind of find out like what's going on.
Yeah.
And another thing about that is we would need, a week or two to figure out if this is even viable, because we don't know why that property hasn't been developed yet, and we don't know if there's something wrong with it that we don't know about. We know it's not like on wetlands or anything, but I was gonna, reach out to Jennifer Day, see if she knows why, it's a tax, we owned it because it was like reclaimed for tax reasons.
Yeah, it might have been taken for tax purposes. That's a possibility. Is there a house on it right now?
No, it's just woods. And so it would need to be, developed, but we would want to turn it into affordable housing of some kind. It looks like there's enough space to put like a little apartment building of some kind. But all of that, would need to go through a town meeting, before May, before we did the final thing. We could definitely put something in for the expression of interest, because it doesn't have to be final, and, they could say no anyway. But there's still a little bit more info I need to gather before we know if that's something that we want to do.
Okay. And
Sierra, do you know the possibly the assessor's map and lot number by chance? You don't have that?
It's map 36, lot 24.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking too
What
that
is
there
it,
may be
2624?
Yeah, 3624. Yeah.
You guys know anything about that? That lot history,
I'm
what's
thinking
been going on?
Yeah, it might have been a tax recoup, but I'm not sure of that. And I'm almost thinking there is another property right nearby there on Middle Road, and whether it's just kind of, I'd have to go back down the road and check it out myself, but I'm thinking there's a second property there too, but I may totally be wrong. Somebody may still be paying taxes on it, but I don't believe anybody's living there. I mean, it's not really abandoned, I don't believe, but or it might classify as underutilized though. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I think there was a house
Okay.
that the town almost took, but the daughter started cleaning up the place. Maybe that's the same one you're thinking of, Chris?
Maybe, yeah. I'm trying to possibly.
I can't
yeah.
think of a vacant lot one, but Sierra, I don't, do you know who the new, or maybe old, I haven't been to a few of the community preservation meetings. Do you know who the representatives of community preservation is right now?
That I don't know.
From-
Unless Janet's on that committee too. I think I don't actually know who that
I
is.
don't think Shannon
From
is.
planning.
From planning, it's
Janet?
me.
Cindy, yeah. I just know that housing's been looking, we've got a pretty good amount of money in community preservation to spend, and there always seems to be an impediment as to pulling something together to actually accomplish. So
Mhm.
maybe if we got some sort of planning grant, find out our options, that might be a great place to start.
Yeah, and it helps that it's not an acquisition, because oftentimes the issue with the CPA funds is that it needs town meeting approval, and then by the time it goes through, someone else has bought it. But since
Right.
this has just been sort of sitting there, nobody's been doing anything with it. I mean, with Murphy's Law, someone's gonna like snatch it up and do something with it the day before we
Well, not if
finally
the
make a move on it. But
Not if the town owns it. If the town owns it, the town would have to put it up for sale or look to liquidate.
okay, cool. So I think
Yeah.
it's pretty much open for business then.
Mhm. So you're thinking that this might be, Randall, this might be a possible community, sort of a planning grant under this program. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what the impediment has been to progress on using any of the community preservation money for housing, but
Uh-huh.
if something like this grant might be used maybe to push us in the right direction, have some expert give us some guidance, then we could always come along. I don't know, does the town actually build the house? All I'm saying is we've got other money as well, so it wouldn't be like we'd
Sure.
be producing a plan that couldn't be funded. We could
Yeah.
actually fund it. And I
Right.
think there might be support for it from the residents at town meeting,
Yeah.
knowing we had a plan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think in the past too, there's been some talk, I know, with CPC about, occasionally we might even reach out to Habitat for Humanity or somebody like that to get, they could be possible builders or something like that to have an affordable house. I'm looking at the site preparation category here, and this strikes me as it might fit into this. You don't need a developer or anybody identified, but you're trying to have a site concept, a market study, acquisition, and related tasks. So if there was any demolition to be done, who knows what was ever there, if there needs to be a brownfields assessment, if there were any,
Like an
any kind of
environmental
hazardous
assessment.
waste,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so that might fit in that category 3, Sierra, as a quick thought. As
Yeah.
one, it may fit into more than one category. Oops, let
Yeah,
me just
I
get
like
down here
it
a bit.
for site prep.
I'm kind of thinking that's where it might be best. This one here is this is for construction ready. So even though this would have, what you're talking about would have a strong public purpose and benefit, this really is that next level, I think, of readiness, which is not there. I just wanted to go back quickly on the small rural town one and just refresh my brain on that. Come on here.
Yeah, we were also talking in the housing meeting about sewage lines. Their example is a new water line connection, but Jim was saying that sewage lines are also a concern, and I'm sure that would fit as well if we wanted to do something like that.
Right. Yeah, I was hoping to have Tom Gone from the water folks here, but he didn't join us tonight. We may have to catch him at an evening meeting or catch him separately somehow here. But this one, because it is, population wise, we fit in this category. I was hoping we could find something in this new category of grant that might fit us. So a new water line connection. So Ed, I know when we had first talked at our earlier grant meeting, you had brought up the idea about whether or not Westfield might have excess capacity and could possibly tie into some of our wells in the Hampden Ponds area.
Well, actually, I was thinking it more along the lines of sewer rather than water.
Not water, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So
I
that
think
was
I
the
have-
only thing we had thought. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I have a feasibility study about sewers somewhere in this office. I believe there was one done for the ponds, and then, if I'm remembering correctly, one for Route 10. Westfield was looking for more capacity. and
Yeah,
For some reason, Southampton said no, and I think we've lost our opportunity in that respect. But maybe the ponds one might be an option. Not sure. I've never read the report.
Okay, well, if you happen to come across it, would you mind forwarding it? And we'll
Certainly will.
imagine it's probably been around for a while if it's up
Yeah,
there. Yeah, Cindy, go
it's
ahead.
more than a decade old.
So this
Yeah.
is on
Cindy?
the topic, but not specific to those areas. But what about the town-owned property behind the current fire station that I believe, if I'm right, was acquired with the idea that maybe that would be a good site for a public safety complex, but then was rejected because of the tremendous expense for either the architecture or the general building, or maybe both? Anybody, Randall probably remembers a lot about that. And do we have an active public safety complex committee at this point?
I thought so. Ed? Oh, Ed's gone.
I think they've met. Yeah, I
I
don't
know
think
there were
they've
some-
met
there-
in quite a
there- There are a
Yeah.
lot of challenges with the lot behind the fire station just because of the grade. But why not? I mean, it sounds like the town has a number of properties we own. Maybe we
Yeah.
some sort of study to evaluate them for housing. I think we
Yep.
own one right next to the police station as well, right on Route 10.
Yes. Yeah, that
It's where
little
the old
tiny lot.
Grange Hall was?
Yeah. Yeah, where
And
the
I'm sure
Grange
we
Hall
own
was.
others around town
Yeah,
that are
Well, we-
potential.
yeah, we definitely do. And certainly that one behind the fire station. The only thing I'd ever heard about it was that after we'd acquired it, people thought it was going to be a very difficult site because of the ledge. But you know, there's ledge in lots of parts of town too, and you build nonetheless. But whatever, I think it was a cost issue at the time, but it might be worthwhile to have another look at that. I don't know if there was ever really a formal study done on that, or that was just people's opinions about the possibility of putting the public safety complex there.
That's my fear, Chris, exactly that there might be a lot of people that had an opinion, but it was never formally studied unless somebody knows something I don't know, which they probably do.
Okay.
I don't
That's
think
where-
I don't think there was a study, but I do think they did perk tests, and I think that's where they gathered the ledge information. And of course, perk tests are a couple holes in the ground, so yeah, it might be worth our while to look at it a little closer.
It's right now, it's an underutilized site, clearly, and it has, outside of the ledge issue, it really has, in my opinion, attractiveness as far as location, center of town.
Mhm.
And we know that there's been other building up there, you know, on both sides of High Street, that one has had some wastewater drainage big time issues of recent months, but the other one is the really big house that's right across the street from it. There's a lot that's going on up there. So it'd be nice to at least understand what the potential is for that particular parcel that's owned by the town currently.
I can't remember whether
Okay.
we own all the way up to High Street or not. It'd be nice to have frontage on High Street, but I can't remember if we bought that far
I
up.
don't believe we do.
Ah, that's a shame.
No,
I'll go
Well,
back and
who
look
o-
at it.
I gotta
don't
look at it.
think we do.
Really?
yeah. Do we know how many acres it is offhand?
Ooh, it was low. Let me see.
Do you want me to go on the property
Yeah.
cut?
Because I know
Oh,
the property to, sorry,
The property on Middle Road that you were talking about,
uh-huh, yeah,
it did come to the town through tax title.
okay. Okay, good. Good to know. So that's
Yeah,
one that we
looks
definitely own.
good.
Yeah,
It looks like it came in 2013.
2013. So it's really been sitting for quite a while. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that would be I really like that idea of a site to really explore and see what's possible. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Some of these places that are town owned, let's see if we can do something and make them somewhat more productive. I know the spot, Randall, the on College Highway, right next to Robert Floyd's there, right next to the police station, that little tiny parcel, that was the old Grange Hall. And
Yep.
we've had a little bit of chit chat about maybe making that a community garden. It's not very big, but there was a couple of thoughts that were raised about that.
Okay, that's interesting. Well,
So
There
that
might be
might-
other grant. I think I read about some other grants that can be used for community gardens too. So maybe that could be explored through a different grant.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it wouldn't be for this. And we already own the property. So it's really just a matter of organizing the community and, you know, that, and it's not that big. I mean, if we could get 10 people on it, we might be doing well. I'm not even sure if there's water on it. Is there water on it, Randall? There must be. Yeah. There must be.
Yeah, that'd
There
be a
used to
a question for Tom Gone.
Yeah, there used to be a building there, so I'm thinking it was, but anyway, that's old. But yeah, so the behind the fire station and Middle Road, two possible sites to do some sort of exploration on. Okay. Those are
There's
good.
also, I'm not sure if it's too close to the little, I think it's called Potash Brook. But the parcel next to the fire station, I believe the town owns as well. There used to be a house there.
Yeah.
It got torn down.
To the right of the station.
If you're facing the
To the
station,
right.
correct. Yeah, to the right. North.
Yeah. That used to be the Albert Miles house that I think a car went through at one point in time.
Yes.
But I think that may be very wetlandy. I'm not positive on that. But because it is right near the brook there. But yeah, I guess we do own part of that as well then, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. And I remember there's
the
one
fire
at the
station-
end. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but for some reason, the fire station has never really talked about expanding in that direction, though, I don't think.
I think because of
So
the brook that's down there.
Yeah, okay. All right.
There is another parcel. I just want to make sure I've got the right street because I know where it is when I plow it. It was looked at before for housing. It is at the end of Laurie Drive.
Where's that, Randall, roughly? I
It's
never heard
off of Strong Road,
Okay,
in between Valley and White Loaf.
Mm.
And it's
Okay.
it goes down a little hill to a cul-de-sac, and then off the cul-de-sac there's a brook, and I think the brook was an impediment. But if we get, I don't know, if we're spitballing, it's another town property that's been looked at before. I don't know if it's been eliminated for good reason or just because you'd have to put a bridge over or whatnot, but it's another town-owned property.
So this is
that
on
I'm
Laurie
aware of.
Drive? You said?
Yeah, it's at the end, off the end of Laurie Drive, off the cul-de-sac. Google's showing two parcels, so I'm not sure if we own both of them or only one of them.
Okay, you can check that with Jen. I have a list from Jen of some of those properties, I think, so. From the treasurer's office or the assessor's office, we can check easy. Okay, good. Well, that's some good ideas. I wasn't aware of those. The other one that is kind of a nightmare is down off of, it's down on Brickyard, right? It's where that current massive junk pile is. I think we own part of the land out back. I don't know that we own that land where the junk pile is, right? I'm thinking we
I don't
own the
think we-
land in back of it.
Yeah, so the town cleaned up the house at one point, and the town was owned about $60,000, and a deal was worked out prior to my time that the estate or whoever was managing the estate gave the town, I think, 20 acres of the backland after they already took all the housing lots off of it.
Mm,
So we own the riverfront and a couple easements.
Yeah, okay. So that's most
Wasn't-
likely all wetlands and stuff, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I believe is his name Mike? Mike still owns, or his executor owns, across the street, there's a small barn and maybe the house
Yeah.
lot.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, for those of you there, it's down toward kind of almost at the junction of Brickyard and Gilbert Road.
I believe
Okay, so that one may not,
either open space or the Conservation Commission received an email about land on Buchanan Circle,
That's right.
asking if there could be some conservation there, but I think the feeling was more it'd be appropriate for housing, affordable housing. I don't know the details, just that it was Buchanan Circle, and I don't know if the town owns the parcel now or what.
yeah,
think
I
the
think we
select
brought that
board
one up
got
at
that.
select board.
Oh, the
Yeah,
select board.
it's a small parcel. There was a woman who lives across the road that was asking whether she could basically buy this property in between two other properties. For no particular reason, except she likes to look out her window and, I don't know, I think she wants a place to put her own brush, actually. But she wanted to know if she could buy it from the town, and then that's when the idea came up of, well, if we actually own this, why don't we think about that for possible affordable housing? But I believe it's a funny shaped lot, and I don't think it had the right frontage to be able to do something with it. But basically, select board, I believe, wrote back to her saying, we're not interested in selling it right now. We're investigating our options. So that it might still possibly be something to look at if we were going to have some sort of a study done of, say, 2 or 3 properties in town with an idea of what could they best be used for. Maybe
That
something
sounds
along
like
that line.
something.
One doesn't require square footage to build on.
Oh,
It didn't have the square footage, right? Yeah, okay.
I had an
Yeah,
idea that
it's-
might just be off the wall, but I thought, what about, rather than tear it down, the old Kanopka farmhouse on Pomeroy Meadow as underutilized, and there's plenty of parking there, and I don't know if that's the kind of thing that a grant would look at or not.
Well, now what is happening to that? I don't know the story of it lately. Is that slated to be torn down?
I think he requested permission to tear it down a few years ago, but I don't know either.
I believe that he did, and I believe that historical looked at that because it's a very old house and whether or not that was of
Yeah.
historical value. And I do believe their decision was no, it's not. And I'm sorry, I can't be 100% certain about this, but I think he came to planning board with the idea of tearing it down and then subdividing that lot. I'm concerned, and that should probably be an assessment. I'm concerned that the cost to completely renovating that in some way might be prohibitive versus just kind of tearing it down because it's quite an old building. I don't know, might need a lot of things to make it habitable for elders or for anybody for affordable. So that could be looked at as, a question we could ask.
Yeah. And who actually, is it still within the family or someone else
I
that
think
owns it now?
I think it's still owned by the gentleman who, acquired
Gouache.
the property, Gouache.
Oh, okay.
And he sold off the lots to the south of that have been built to be 2 duplexes right now.
The
And
duplexes, yeah.
yeah, and then he himself and his family own the property to the north of it, which is
Yeah.
the larger red house that's been built.
Right across from the
Okay.
conservation land or water land.
But the water land, yeah.
It would just be
Yes,
nice
okay.
if it could be saved and we could avoid more subdivision. I think it would be nice. And if there's grant money out there, then maybe it's a possibility.
I think it would be worth
Mhm.
looking at if to answer Diana's thoughts on that. Yeah.
My other thing,
Okay.
just since we're on this topic, and this really isn't for today, but I'll just throw out there, in terms of underutilized buildings, we have the church in town, and the future of the church is uncertain right now. So we talk a lot about, you know, how we might repurpose it in some way or another. So just keep that in mind. Keep that on the back burner.
Interesting,
l-
yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me add to that point that Diana just brought about the church. You know, there's so much value in a centrally located, certainly historical, we in town to have such a building. And when we think about the gatherings of people in town, we don't have very many public spaces. We've in the past gathered at the church, you know, paid some money to utilize the church area and the kitchen, et cetera. But other than that, we only have one other spot, and that's the community room at the library, which is wonderful, but really small by, you know, in comparison. Of course, I'm an optimist. We're not going to be in this pandemic forever. But I think that's worth thinking about, to not see that loss to us, the church, not only for the value that it brings to the people that, you know, to worship there. So just thoughts.
Okay, good. Well, I think anything else is probably more, if there was anything else, it would be more water related, which we'd really need to get Tom's input on. So maybe, Randall, you and I could figure out a way to reach out to Tom and corral his input without having him necessarily have to join in a meeting. But if he had any thoughts, I don't run into him very often. Do you catch up with him?
He stops
Ed?
by every once in a while. I will
Yeah.
indicate our interest in having his opinion
Yeah,
and
okay.
see
So
what he
either,
has to say.
yeah, either you or Ed, whoever kind of runs into him, but I think it would be good to get, if there is any thoughts from the water perspective, that would be one to try and explore. So where do we go from here, guys? I don't want to keep you long. Do we think we've got at least something in terms of exploring some vacant properties, underutilized properties, for some sort of a feasibility site plan idea? Is that what I'm kind of hearing? And maybe 2 or 3 properties, not just one, if we were able to, you know, get somebody to come and look at things, that we do a mini grouping of properties right around the center of town. So that certainly the fire station would be one, but the Middle Road one as well. What would be our third choice?
I think there may be limitations to the one at the end of the cul-de-sac I mentioned. So,
Okay.
I don't know. It should be easy enough to get a list of all the town-owned properties from the assessor,
Yep.
and maybe just looking at a zone, the assessor's maps, we could eliminate some of them.
Yeah.
Maybe pick a couple candidates.
Okay.
Wasn't there one on Cook Road too? Something on Cook Road that the town had to take for taxes?
Okay.
We bought a water protection parcel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's the only one I know about.
Yeah, there's one there that's kind of in conjunction with the is it with Easthampton or Hoyoke and the Barnes Act?
Yeah, well, somebody owns the conservation, holds the conservation restriction, and the other one owns the property or some such.
Yeah. Well, I've got a hold of, at one point I've got to go back and look at it, but I do have a list of properties from Jen, I believe, and that would give us the tax situation on some of those. So I could take a quick look at that and just see if there's another property or two. Okay, so the idea is that we would have to put something together on this little form over the next couple of weeks or so. Would anybody feel comfortable trying to tackle a particular question or two, or it's really hard to write by committee. We've done that a little bit. We'd rather not do that again.
Why don't you assign a question to certain people?
Well, we could do that, but again, if the I guess a lot of the background questions, maybe, you know, from Ed's point of view, some of that, the overall economic development goals of the town, et cetera, is that something, Ed, maybe that you would be more able to do? And then
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, and then maybe some of the specifics on that section 3, which would be the actual project goals, et cetera, itself. how about I send out the template for the expressions of interest around, and I think between planning and housing, if you guys could take a look at that section 3 part, which are those 3 or 4 questions, and then the grant committee, we could work on the section 2 part. And Randall, if you've got something beyond, well, let's talk for a couple minutes before you all disappear about the public safety complex itself. I mean, again, I
I was
think
gonna ask, did they do a feasibility study for that already?
well, there were various things done, I believe, but there were some design things that were done, if I'm not mistaken, that were just astronomical in terms of cost. But I don't know. I mean, my understanding was that the committee's been kind of a little bit in hibernation lately, because I think they've been a bit discouraged. They've looked at various properties and nothing seems to be fitting their criteria, because I believe Chief Workman in particular wants to have something more centrally located if possible, to be able to cover both ends of town. And they had looked very seriously at one point, I think, of that property at Valley Road and College Highway, which has now been bought by somebody else and has already been dug up over this last week. So that one's gone. But I think the idea was, not finding the right property to locate it was what I thought was the biggest stumbling block. So I don't know more than that in terms of other studies that were done for design work or anything, but definitely with some of our neighboring towns, Williamsburg, Westhampton, all of them are working on their public safety complexes, and for relatively reasonable prices. I mean, Williamsburg is going to be tearing down the school that they have in the center of Williamsburg and making that the public safety complex. So
I just wonder if that could be part of it, is exploring properties. Like specifically, that could be what we could request the grant for, is like that level, to solve that part of the problem.
well, we can try that. I think I would want to go back to the Public Safety Committee and get a list of all the properties that they've physically looked at, and why they've been rejected, because we don't need to pay somebody to do the same work all over again, right?
Right. Chris, are we gonna have another meeting before filling this out?
I think we ought to, and that was going to be my next question. So are people okay with like this afternoon type meeting, or would you rather an evening in? I mean, what works?
This worked for me just because I got out of my training 5 minutes before this meeting started.
Yeah, okay. What about Cindy? You were shaking your head which way?
I'm happy for afternoon meetings, especially for the next few months.
Okay, all right. How about Kate, Sierra? I know you're both in the middle of working probably, yeah?
I have 2 meetings that are happening right now that I'm missing happily. So honestly, whatever works for you.
We feel honored that you
Sounds like you're not missing them, Kate.
Yeah. Sierra?
Honestly, I'd do any. I mean, I really enjoy participating in these meetings, so I'll try to make it work.
Okay. How about you, Ed? I know your days are usually kind of crazy.
My days and evenings are kind of crazy, so I'll just try to
All right.
make it when I can. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, how about, I'm going to suggest today just happened to be the easiest day to schedule, but maybe I don't want to coincide with like select board meeting night, because that's usually a big preparation day. Is Wednesday a possible day for anybody? I know there's oftentimes planning board, but they haven't met lately. So Cindy, is that a conflict for you, or?
Are you talking afternoon?
Yes.
Oh, it's not a problem whatsoever for
Okay.
me to do an afternoon on, well, having said that, my grandkids come from 3 to 5. So if it's earlier in the afternoon,
Okay,
that's
like
good.
kind of like this. All right. Could I suggest that we try to meet next Wednesday, March 10th at the same time at 1:30?
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, let's do that. And I'll try to also see if we can maybe get Tom to join us at that point in time. We'll try and, yeah, go ahead, Randall.
Yes, in addition to Tom, I believe Ian Illingsworth is on the Public Safety Committee, and I'm sure he'd like to provide input on what they have accomplished and
All
what
right.
they've looked at.
Good idea. I'll send a note out to him as well. Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So let's do that March 10th at 1:30, same time, same place. And I'll get the information out. And in the meantime, I'll send all of you the Word version of the expressions of interest template. But it just, I hope you agree with me that it just seems like it's too good an opportunity to try and pass up. I mean, I think we ought to at least throw out our ideas, and if they come back and say, you guys are all wet, forget it, then we know, right? But at least I think if we've got the opportunity to get feedback from the state before we decide to put in a full application, it's worth our time to try and do that. So with that in mind, I'll let the invited guests disappear if they want to. And then we'll just jump on to other things. And thank you guys for coming very much, Randall, Cindy, and Sierra.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And
Thank you.
for the rest,
Yeah.
for the rest of you guys, I would really just like to look over the meeting minutes that I sent out. I don't know if there's any other particular new business. Does anybody have any super new business that we need to think about? I think nothing else was coming up in terms of our deadlines. This was really the biggest deadline. I talked to Randall a couple of times about that culvert grant that was like due now too, but he doesn't seem to have anything in mind that, you know, he's that excited about. And Ed had said that that kind of a grant oftentimes ends up being much more complicated and costly than one assumes. So I can see why he may not be willing to jump on that with all of his other priorities. So
I did bring up in the Board of Health meeting, there was a regionalization grant opportunity for looking at how to better collaborate with other towns.
Okay.
And I'll just say that the Board of Health really felt like right now, especially because 2 of the board members have left, and it's kind of going to be a new board as of 2 months from now, and there's still the pandemic. And, you know, we thought that maybe next year might be a better time to try to explore that.
Well, it may also, you could look at it both ways. It's possible. I mean, you could also say because you're losing and don't have as many members, now's the time to, you know, sort of strengthen yourselves by being able to collaborate with other people and not having to depend on volunteers from one town. But yeah, you can look at it both ways. Did you add that one onto our grant master list?
I didn't because the team, I talked to Becky and Jerry, and they really felt, and Charlie, who actually had done a lot of that work previously, and he said that it took a lot of time. And it also takes a lot of work on behalf of the other communities that are collaborating, because they also have to agree to it and has to go to their town meetings. So it's not just in Southampton. So you know, it just seemed like it was going to be a lot to take on right now.
Well, and it would definitely be, you know, whatever community we might collaborate with. For example, a while ago, we were looking with the building commissioner. We had reached out to Westhampton and Easthampton to see whether we could just do a 2-town, you know, kind of sharing of staff, basically in that regard, that the building commissioner would work between the towns. So that would be the same kind of thing where you'd have to reach out kind of informally to the other town and say, hey, look, could we partner with you and share our limited resources, you know, with you guys or something like that. But yeah, but maybe just so we don't lose track of it, if it's something for the future, just add it onto that grant list.
I'll put it on the list for sure.
Yeah, in the Google Docs one, if you would, that would be great. Okay. So with that, I'd like to just jump into the minutes. There were 3 sets of minutes that I sent out, which really don't have anything too complicated in them. This was from January 19th. That was the work we were doing to put forth the Mass Trails grant. And this is where we spent time in this particular one, where Paul talked about where the trail ending was at Sheldon's and all that connection or not to Westfield, and some of that notion of what was happening on the Westfield end of the trail grant, the trail itself. And basically we went through some of the basic questions there. There wasn't anything too complicated. And then I think at that time, we were still waiting for the budget and the timeline to be done. So this was really basically back in the context of the core application. And then the next meeting, I believe, was this one on the 27th. And this one was more looking at the budget and the timeline, where this was after Ed had talked to our legal counsel and we'd gotten all these crazy things that we needed to do. So we were able to really fill in the blanks on our budget and our timeline. We talked about reaching out to the the folks for letters of support from Senator Bellis and Rep. Savadosa, which we did acquire. And you guys gave me the go-ahead to go ahead and enter the thing into the grant portal, and pray tell I did it right after all that. So that was the second one. And just very last one was one last one. Just catching up on all these crazy things here, guys. Oh, where is it?
Thank you for doing all of that.
Yeah, I'm going to hand it off at some point. I just, this isn't really what I really would like to do, but we'll figure it out later. Just to get us going here. I figured I'd take it on for now, but we definitely do need to.
Just so you know, as long as I get the recordings, I never mind taking minutes, as long as I know I'm doing it. So I'm happy to take part in that.
Okay, well, that's great. That will be very helpful. Yeah, okay. So this was the last meeting of the 11th. Diana was out on this one. I think it was February 11th. And so this is where we started talking about the one-stop grant, but also we had gone through the notion of sending out that little town survey to the various departments about, what grants the various departments had received and where they were from, so we could also be sure that we were keeping track of any grants that people in town have already applied for, departments have already applied for and maybe received, that we had them on our list as well. We decided to hold off on that a little bit just so that it wasn't in the midst of, a very busy time right now with all the departments preparing their budgets, etc. So we'll hold off on that till maybe later in March to send out that little spreadsheet for the various departments to fill out on their own grants. But then we spent time going through we went through the whole spreadsheet pretty much that Kate had developed, and we updated a couple things where we knew that grants had already been applied for. And Cindy, unfortunately, I should have asked her, but she left on us already. We know the neighborhood outreach grant has come through for them at Open Space. That's been, I believe it's $4,250 that they have received on that, and that's going to be to do some educational pamphlets related to the Barnes Aquifer. So that came through as well.
Actually, I don't think that they're going to use that for the Barnes Aquifer. I think they're going to go to CPC for that. It's going to be to pay fees for experts to talk and stuff like that, and for another mailing, but not the Barnes Aquifer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then maybe I need to change that. I can check with this one here. I could just say educational work.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I could just take that out and that'll be there. Okay. The Culvert Grant, this is the one I was just mentioning, the Culvert Replacement Grant. I didn't get any real reaction from Randall, so I think that one is, another one that the due date was pretty soon, and I think that's probably difficult. It also was one that it had a special requirement. It had to really be crossing a stream bed, I believe, as well, or a river. So there were some limitations in terms of what kind of culverts could be replaced on it. So it's probably a little bit over our heads for right now.
Yeah, I had an idea about one, but it wouldn't meet that requirement. So. Yeah. Well, what was the one you had, Ed? Just go ahead. Oh, no, it doesn't cross a stream bed or anything, but I know that one of the comments when how will I say this? The group house that is now being built on the corner of Route 10 and Valley Road is, I know when it was at the planning board that some of the concerns by the abutters was basically most of it is a surface culvert that every once in a while fails. So I was thinking about that one as a possibility, but that does not cross a stream bed or anything. So that one would be out. I think it probably does. Yeah, I think that I'll double check on that criteria, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it required there. But yeah, I do know of that one. And now that they've started construction there, that's probably going to be an issue for the next door neighbor.
But anyway,
Yep.
so then we basically spent time on the one stop going through it a bit like we did today. So that was really the sum total of our meeting, and then trying to corral a few of these people from the other relevant committees, which we did manage to do, at least to get 3 of the different groups represented today, which is great. I'm glad they were all able to come and at least hear about it and start participating in this. So with that in mind, if you would be ready to approve these minutes, or if you want to hang off, it's your willingness. I'm at your command here. We have 3
I'll make a
sets. Can
motion
we
to
approve all
approve.
3?
Motion to
Okay.
approve all
second.
3 sets.
I'll
All
second
right.
that motion.
Kate, second. Okay. All right. Could we have a roll call then, please?
Fetterman,
It's-
aye.
Fowles, aye. And Ed, aye, I assume.
I think
Yep.
Kate, I think
Okay.
Kate's trying to vote, but she's muted.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
Kate
about
muted
that,
herself,
Brooks,
huh?
aye.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll say that all 3 sets of minutes are approved, and I'll get those posted. Very good. So I think that's really all I had, unless anybody has anything else. I will send that document around, and if we can maybe just start thinking about anything in that section 2 for our part of some of the overall goals and things, and not sure where we can go for any good information about that, but we'll have to see what we need to do to talk about overall economic goals of the town.
I think wherever you found those statistics about the percentages of our low income or affordable housing is helpful. I was gonna do some digging there to see if there's like state statistics or benchmarks.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yep. Yep. And some of that I get, I imagine Sierra will do a little bit, from the housing point too. So that's good. She's going to jump in on that she's going to be their rep, I guess, which is good to this committee for the moment while we get through this process. But that's good. No, I think whatever we can do, and I think it was kind of the overall town economic development goals. So maybe a little bit of the stuff from the master plan will fit in there. I'm not totally sure. We'll have to sit down and kind of look at those questions, but we'll try to focus on just section 2 and let the different, committees, to the extent that they can, focus on that section 3. I hope we could have, more than one idea. I'd like to pitch at least 2. So I don't know, Ed, if you do see Tom, do you think you could kind of twist his arm a little bit and see if he has any thoughts about water and sewer or anything like that, water lines to the wells or any of those ideas?
Sure.
Okay. I just never run into him. So, and I know they aren't really around town hall very often. So maybe if you could reach out to him, that would be great.
Be glad to.
And I'll be sure to invite him to the next meeting, and I'll include Ian too. So that's a good idea. I will include Ian. And who would be the person on the public safety committee? Who's been kind of the head of that? I know Charlie was on it, but I don't think he was the head of it, right? Was that?
Well, Charlie was the chair for a while, then it was Don Warren.
Oh, Don Warren. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know
but,
John was our liaison, and John's gone
yeah.
now. So.
Yeah, I mean, probably the 2 key people on that committee are either Ian Hollingsworth or John Workman.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they would have, because they would have gone out to look at some of those sites anyway, possibly too. So, okay. Well, let me invite Ian and get him involved at least. Okay. Or I can invite John too and see if he wants to be part of it too. But yeah.
Yeah, but I would probably invite both of them, to be honest with you.
Okay, we'll do. All right. Well, I think then that's about it. So if that's okay with everybody, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Motion
I'll
to
second.
adjourn.
All right. Thanks. And we'll have
Gibson,
roll call.
aye.
Yep. Fowles, aye.
Fetterman, aye.
And I think
Brooks, aye.
there we go. All right. Very good.
Yep.
Thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in about a week's time.
Okay.
All right, take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.